Get ready for a conversation that will leave you breathless. We're talking with Dria Andersen about their thrilling shifter romances where love, loyalty, and suspense collide. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast contains mature content intended for adult audiences only. Dria, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yay.
I love your books. I am obsessed. And I told you in the green room that you are one of the first authors that I read that had Black shifter romance. And I was like, wait a minute. I am here for all of this. So tell us a bit about you and how you got into writing.
So I've always been writing, but it took me getting pregnant with my son and having to sit down to finally take the stories that I had on my little thumb drive, a little travel with me everywhere. And even through the different types, right? It used to be a CD and then it was a floppy disk, finally a thumb drive. I'm sitting down and I'm like, you know what? I got all these stories, nothing to do but like bake my son. So let me sit down and write. And so that's what I did. At the time, too, self-publishing was just coming out and people were like, oh, you can just upload your book. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to go through because that gives me anxiety, all the querying and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, let me just try it. And so that's how that started.
What was your first one that you released?
So the first one I released, and this is before I knew anything about anything, is the Destiny series. I'll say the series because I released it out of order because I was just like, this is what I finished. So this is what you get. So it was very slapped together, but that was my first series.
I don't think I've read that one. So can you tell us a bit about it?
So it was my first foray into paranormal at all. I wanted to do something that felt very like mythical and like legend wise. And it's about these lion shifters. They had been banished from their temple because they allowed one of their artifacts to be stolen. And so as a punishment, their goddess sent them away and told them they had to find the artifact, but also keep the vampire population under control. And so you start the series with their punishment ending with them finding the artifact.
Wow.
It was very world dense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, having to do a lot of world building. I started with your Night Brothers series. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about that is you've got more of the less world building, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm here for world building, especially when
it's more contemporary.
When it's a series. But this one is more of urban fantasy where it's fantastical and it's got the fantasy elements, but it's in our world as we know it now. And you've got it where there are, and you mentioned lion shifters, and I'm glad you did because I love that aspect of that there are different types of shifters where it's not just your typical wolf shifters. You have so much variety. You've got panthers, you've got lions. Yes, you've got some wolves, but you've got so many different elements to the shifter community that it made it way more intriguing than the typical. Yes, more intriguing than the typical shifter romance. And it's set in our world. So it didn't feel like I had to be like, wait, who's what and what's going on or any of that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that series because one, it's just delicious and sexy. But you've got some fated mates, mild suspense. And we were talking about this before. You don't consider your books suspense.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Because when I think about your books, I think you have the couple and they're fated mates and they're like, okay, we're going to be together. Of course, there's a little bit of push and pull there. Do I really want you? And I like that you have that element of autonomy still. That it's not just, oh, well, you're my fated mate, and so it doesn't matter that I hate you. I have to be with you. Right. There's still that waiting period, almost slow-ish burn, right? It's not slow burn, but slow-ish burn where one of the characters is maybe fighting it. So let's talk about how you maybe didn't consider it to be suspense.
Yeah. When I think of suspense, I think of Nora Roberts and Jane Ann Krantz, like even Brenda Jackson has suspense. You have an arc, right? You find out there's this kind of crime and then you're wondering throughout the book who did it. But I feel like mine are just more messy. I just want a little bit of mess in it. And I want to not have to because I want drama, right? But I don't want it to be between the mate. I would rather the love be low angst. I want you to fall in love. I don't need all that. And so you also don't want to read a book that's just, oh, it's squishy. Thank you. No, I want some drama on the outside. So I have all my drama be outside of the couple. And so it feels like drama, just drama to me. And so when you said it was suspense, I was like, me? Suspense? Like, just consider it a little messy. That's what we call
I
it.
love it. And I love that you take that approach of making sure that the couple have that lovey-dovey kind of
Yeah.
time. Why is that important for you specifically?
So I write specifically towards my anxiety, right? The things that make me anxious in books. I don't read books that make me anxious. And so when I write to read. I read my books over and over. Like I have comfort books that are mine. I write specifically for myself. And so I know what I like. I like squishy. I want babying. I want that rough. I want all those different elements. And I don't really want to read about you guys arguing. I argue in my real life. I don't want to. We don't need that in the book. Like I was just fighting with my husband yesterday. I don't want to. I don't want to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? I want to deal with the squishy. So yeah, I try to keep my drama and angst outside of the couple.
Yes, that makes sense. I don't think that, especially because you've been writing for so long, I think that some authors can lose that of like, I'm writing
Mhm.
for me, where it becomes like, what's the next bestseller? What are people wanting? What is my readership asking for? And so staying true to yourself and also being successful too, right? Like I found your books and was like, yes, I'm binging all of them, as many as I can get. And when is the next one coming out? And so I love that you're able to still hold true to that without feeling, and obviously you might feel some of that influence externally,
Yeah.
but still staying true to that. You mentioned your favorite comfort read. Can you tell us
hmm
what it is and a little bit of backstory about it?
My so it's a little embarrassing, but my favorite comfort read is a short story that I wrote called "Claiming April." It's just really short and really squishy. And Grant is he's such a typical like wolf shifter, and I eat it up every time. So if I need a book to settle my nerves, I read it. In the Night Brother series, I love Rocco. I think I've read Rocco a million times because he's just quiet bear, and and Jaleesa is like, in his ear, yap, 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 yap. And he's just so stoic, and I just love it so much. And so those are my two that I read over and over again. But Devin has been added, but just because I really love Devin a lot. So
Yes.
those are the ones that I read over and over.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
You have some like urban
Mhm.
fiction elements to your book, meaning it's like on the streets, it's almost entirely Black cast. And
Mhm.
so, why was it important for you to showcase that aspect in your writing?
I can't speak to the urban aspect. I think it's just I got into urban books and I really loved it, but I don't live that life, so I can't really immerse myself in it. So I could add a few elements that I liked to, like I said, because I like to read my books. But them being Black was very important to me because I have a huge family. And so outside of like school and work, we don't really deal with anyone else. And so that's my work. I'm used to just it being Black people. Like our electrician is Black, everyone in our world is. And so I just wrote true to that. Do you know what I mean?
Y-
I may work with a few different type of coworkers, but for the most part, my family is ginormous. And so we're very insular. And so everything is Black. And so that's how I grew up. And so it reflects that in the book, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alexandria House said the same thing. So she
Yeah.
was on the podcast and she was like, the way I grew up and the community that I
Yeah.
grew up in, it was like Romeo you. It was
Yeah.
entirely Black.
Yes.
And I wanted to have a space where I could just showcase that,
Yeah.
where I don't have to describe the person because
Huh?
they're all Black.
You're
That's it.
like, yeah, this is her hair Black? Yes. Unless she's wearing has a different color. Unless I say otherwise, probably Black. So
Yep.
yeah, that's just how it is. And then plus you don't have again, I don't like angst and trouble. I don't want to bring trouble to my world. So if I don't have to introduce an element where they have to deal with a racism or I won't do that because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to read it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have a hierarchy in the Knight Brothers
Mhm.
and the Devon, what's that one? Edwards Brothers
Mhm.
series. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you came up with that element of it? Because I think that it's something that's teased throughout that you're
Mhm.
like, "Ooh, wait, tell me more. I wanna know more about these, like, higher characters and what they're doing."
Yeah, so when I sit down to write a world, I always try to figure out how to because I like contemporary, so I like it to be in an urban setting. So I wanna figure out how to do it in a way where you won't blink twice if you see a wolf shifter. If you see a wolf walking past you, so I have to make their world in a way that it's normal, right? It's not, "Oh, we're hiding in the corner." I don't even wanna hide nothing. Everybody is out. If you see a vampire, you see a vampire, right? And so, to me, the motif was that, like, it's okay, they were part of this how do they live in a world with humans nicely? And so I was like, "Oh, maybe they had this war, and now there's this peace treaty, and then we have the motif to keep them under control." And then when I started my reading journey hundreds and thousands of years ago,
Right?
I used to read historicals, right? And they used to have the ton. And that is so fascinating to me. And I was like, "Oh, what if we could have something like that?" And so that's what the Motzi is. They're like the 10. They're high society, and they have their balls, and they have their different social hierarchies. That really interested me.
Yes.
Uh, yeah.
I love that you brought that element and the correlation too, because it makes sense when having read the books, right? That is very similar, like you mentioned, the balls and the parties and like the
Right.
get-togethers and the
Right.
showboating that
Yeah.
happens a bit
Yes.
in the
Yes.
books.
The peacocking, right?
Yep,
Everybody's in their best
exactly.
gown. Yeah.
You also have some trauma elements to your
Mhm.
stories that I think are important to read. Can you talk through some of those and why you came up with them or why you wanted these characters to have those arcs? Thinking specifically about, let's go with Devon's book, I believe it
Mhm.
was, where she had grown up in an orphanage. Is that the right one?
Mm-mm.
Or I'm mixing
Orphanage.
books.
I think that's Dina. Dina grew up in an orphanage.
Okay. So yes, let's talk about Dina growing up
Okay.
in an orphanage and kind of like you have it where the Motzi they're caring for these kids, coming in and they're bringing things and it's
Mhm.
such a community where like maybe they can't keep one of the kids or take care of one of
Right.
the kids themselves, but they still bring in a lot of community support because they're like, we're all shifters. It doesn't matter that
Right.
you're a panther and I'm a lion. Like, we're all shifters and we all
Right.
need to look out for each other. So, can you talk through a bit of that element?
I think family is such a huge deal for me that the thought of someone not having a family,
Mm,
like, eats my heart up, right? In a perfect world, to me, we would take care of everyone in our community. No one would be left behind, and it would include kids that, like you said, you can't take into your home, and so I want it to be my little perfect world. Okay, yeah, I grew up in an orphanage, but we had all these things. People were always coming up. Like I still wanted to feel like a family because even within that orphanage, like Rocco was there, and Devin and Declan were there, and they were all together. They formed their own little family, and so I think that's at the basis of it. I love everything about family, and I want everyone to have family, even if you have to make it yourself.
yeah, that found family aspect, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
is really important, especially in books, because a lot of us might feel alienated, right? Whether
hmm
that's because something happened with our families and we
hmm
don't feel like we're safe with them, or maybe
right.
we don't have families. I know for myself, my found family is the most important thing.
Mhm.
Having grown up the way I did, and then I lost both my parents by the time I was 31. And
Mm,
so it was like, one, who am I anymore? Right? But then
yes,
also
yes.
needing to have people that I could lean on, that I could get support from was
Mhm.
so important. And so I think that found family aspect, I love reading found family because it's like
Same, same.
life is
Yeah.
messy. I get it.
It is, and not everyone that's blood is not. They're not reliable all the time. And then when you talk about writing traumas, I feel like there are so many different types of people. A book can't be too perfect because then it starts to feel unrealistic, and then you can't really depend on it to soothe those aches. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, I read and I write certain things, and so you wanna soothe the loneliness ache, so your character needs to be lonely so that your reader can go through that so they understand, yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel, that type of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The trauma is just as important to me as the story.
Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful. I love that. I love that you said that because it is. And I think that's
Mhm,
one of the beautiful things about romance
mhm,
is that we can explore so many of these different elements. We can explore our own lived experiences or the lived
Right.
experiences of others, and it can soothe us. And
Mhm.
it's not just people fucking. Yes, they be doing
Right.
that too.
Yes,
But
right. We do love that part as
yeah.
well, yes.
But it's so much more than that. It's
Mhm,
the feeling less alone. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the
mhm.
having someone who you can rely on, who can support you and hold you up and is there for you when you need them. And so I love that element to it. It's so beautiful. I love romance so much.
Same, same. Oh my gosh. I could talk about it all day long. So, yeah, I'm totally in that same boat.
Tell us a bit more about some of your other books. You have some other ones that I have not read, but I want to know
Mhm.
all about your other ones that you've got for anyone who's like, I want to know more.
I try to do a little bit of everything. Like, you have your Destiny series, and that is very, like I said, it's very world heavy. So is my Haven series, which is another one that is, like, dear to me. It's when I started to get a little more into the swing of what I wanted to do as a writer. And it is about 3 brothers. They are a part of this, like, security team. They protect the world from these creatures. It's more fantasy, like, a little not high fantasy per se, but a little more fantastical. And, like, humans don't know. I just really love their world. And then they have it where there's other dimensions. So it's just really, like, really world intensive. And the men are the men. Like, I really love a good strong, like, about his shit man, you know
Yes.
what I mean? So, yeah, so the 3 of them are fantastic. That one has your suspense and, like, the world is about to end. You don't know it, but they know it, and they're trying to protect everyone from it, and I just love the Haven series. But the rest of them, I wrote Destiny series, right? And then I wrote the Haven series. I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is fantastical. Legends are made of this," right? And then I discovered Shifters, and I was like, "Ooh." And so I got stuck in Shifters for a while because I just really love them. But this year, I'm gonna go back to my vampires. I'm gonna do another world heavy series that I'm, like, super excited about. So very excited about it because it features creatures that are not traditional to me for sure, and then to, like, Black paranormal.
Mm,
So I'm really excited to explore that. 'Cause I'm sure there are Black mages, but I haven't read any that I liked. So
yeah.
that's where we're going.
Ooh, I love that. You
Yeah.
mentioned strong men.
Mhm.
Why is it important for you that these men have their shit together before they're
Yeah.
like actually find their fated mate? Because a lot of these characters have either known each other for a while
Mhm.
or kind of have an inkling that the other person might be their fated mate, but then it's not like, "Hey, we're definitely" right? It's not this like, moment
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they get. And so why is it important for you that these men have that kind of, "I have my stuff together, I am who I am," and they're so sure of themselves before
Mhm.
they step to their mate? Why is that important for you?
So it's important story-wise because I don't want the angst,
Right.
but in general, I think it allows the female protagonist to be a little messier, right? It allows her to still have that security net that, okay, my life's a little messy, but this guy has his together. I just feel, again, back to just what I like to read. And so that's what I end up writing. Like there are some instances where I may have a no, there aren't. I like a man with his shit together. So that's just pretty much that's how that goes. I just think it's important because it allows me to explore a little bit more on the female side, right? I'm a woman. And so it allows me to explore myself a little bit as well as I'm writing. So,
Yeah. And I think
mhm.
too, it's important to see Black men reflected that way. Like
Yeah.
they can have their shit together.
Yes. And they can be good men. Yes. Let's push stereotypes. Like, I don't even, it's so funny that you say that because I don't even consider that when I write. I don't consider any outside stereotypes at all when I write. Like, it's just not, no, thank you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just, I feel like it bogs it down, and I don't want to bog down the story with, to me, things that are unnecessary. Like, I don't feel like we have to beat a stereotype. We can just exist. And then if you invite yourself in that existence, you'll see that it's not stereotypical.
Going to your shifters. So this is
Hmm.
something I was thinking about as we were prepping for this interview, is that your shifters are different. Yes, they're different in that there's a lot of variety to them, like we've mentioned
Mhm.
already, but how they move with their animal
Mhm.
is different too.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is when I typically read shifter romance, it's almost this two-person
Yeah.
togetherness to the shifter, whereas yours, it feels like it's one. Was
Mhm.
that intentional?
Yes.
Okay,
No, yes.
let's talk about it.
Yes. Because I read a lot of shifter romances. I really love them. But I just am fascinated with the idea that you have this second spirit, but you are so together. Again, no angst, right? There's no inner tug of war. You're going to have the tug of war between the man and the animal or the woman and the animal. I mean, they're two different things, but it feels so less lonely, if that makes sense. If you're perfectly melded with that animal, you always have this friend with you. Like, I think that's why I did it. I don't like that push and pull if I don't have to deal with it, if that makes sense. And it feels more realistic to me.
Yeah. I like that too, because yes, you've got the moments where the woman's like, "I am not giving him the time of day," and the animal's like, "Yes, we are."
Yeah, yeah, that's ours. Like, you need to get on board. Yeah,
I love those moments. Like,
yeah,
just reading them, like, kicking my feet and being like,
yeah, yeah. I do. I love that. Because
yeah.
if you think about it, I try to think about what a person would do. I would be like, no, I don't really like this man. And your animal instincts are just like, no, I'm feeling him. I don't know if you feel these warm and fuzzies, but that's all me. You know what I mean? Like, we fight in our daily lives, right? You see a guy you're attracted to, you're like, oh, I'm attracted to him. But mentally, you're like, I don't feel like dealing with it. You know what I'm saying? So there's like that. You already have that push and pull. And I think it's cool for it to be in your animal instinct that it's like, yeah, we really like him. We would like to open our legs to him. So yeah, I really I like
You
that aspect.
know, the animal's always like, "We eat and we do that."
Yeah,
That's it.
that's pretty much, you know what I'm saying? This is how we survive.
Yes. And it's true, that is how we act as humans, right?
Uh-huh.
It's just
Mhm.
very like, "Alright, they're hot. Obviously, we're not
Yeah,
gonna act on it, but moving on."
because then your brain gets involved and you overthink, and it's just now you've missed your window, and it's, "Oh, never mind." You know what I mean? So you've missed that opportunity, whereas if you had an animal, they'd be like, "I'm gonna move your leg, and we're gonna get a little closer." You know what I mean? So this I think that's cool.
Yes. Alright, tell us more about some of your other books, because we got through some of them and I stopped you,
Mhm.
but what about some other ones?
Yeah, I have a lot of short stories because again, my attention span is in the dumps, and so I like a quick little pick me up, as I call them. But yeah, I have the Hamilton Brothers series, which I love. It started from I tried to explore a poly romance as a prude, mind you. I tried to explore it, and I really liked the world that I built, and so I tapered it off into the Hamilton Brothers. They're two bear shifters, again, very urban. They're lawyers and they find their mates. I got to introduce witches in that world. I really love that world. I got so trapped in the night series. I'm just like, I love that world so much. So
Yes.
I focused in on there. Even with the Edwards brothers, like Declan is coming out here in a couple of weeks. And then we're still going in that world. Like I have another one planned from that world where I introduce tigers. I'm just like really excited about it.
Yes, that's what I love though. We've got those exciting new elements coming up. There's new
Yeah.
characters coming in
Yes.
and new cats
Yeah.
coming in. And it's
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I am so excited because Lucky was introduced in Devin's book. She's Keisha's cousin. And my friend was like, "Is Lucky getting a book?" And I was like, "You know what? I think so." So I do take outside influences. Yeah, you want Lucky? I'll give you Lucky. And it's like, ooh, I can give you Lucky this way. So I enjoy hearing outside input because then it gives my brain something to think about. So, ooh, I didn't think about that. And so now I get to explore another facet of this world. So
yes.
that's exciting.
I love your process.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, my
go with the
chaos.
flow.
Chaos of yes! I tell people all the time I'm a mood writer, and so I do write where the wind takes me. It's, "Oh, you want a book on frogs? Okay, let me see how I can integrate a frog in it." Like, that's pretty much how I go. Because at the end of the day, it just has to be something that I can read over and over. That's my only requirement. So you can tell me all you want to, and I will take it in and then match it into Adrian. It's basically how that goes.
That is so fun. So you mentioned a few things we can look forward to. Is there anything else, maybe some events you're going to this year that we can maybe see you at or anything like that?
So I'm going to be in Atlanta for the Black Romance Reader Fest. I'm working on Orlando. There's a romance fest in Orlando as well, because that's right up the street. And so I'm working on that. But those are the only 2 events. I told my husband I figured it out that 2 is pretty much my limit, because if I go more, I did 3 last year, and my writing gets screwed up. Like, it's just I don't have time to write. I can't get my brain together because I'm getting so 2 is my limit. And so, yeah, so Orlando and Atlanta. Atlanta in the end of May, and then Orlando, I think, is in August. So I still have to confirm that, but yeah.
Yes. For anyone who is watching or listening and are like, I need to know more about these books and wants to binge your entire backlog, because I highly recommend doing that. Like, I remember I found one of them and I was just like, pew.
Oh,
Like,
I
no
love that. I
progression to the whole
love when I
series.
find new writers, because I do the same thing. Ooh, well, let me just see. So, yeah,
Yes. And you have quite an
I totally
extensive
love that.
backlog. So,
Yeah.
where can people find you, get to know you, hang out with you, all that fun stuff?
So, online, you mean?
Yes.
Because I am a person who is always in the house.
I know, same.
I like to be in my little cave, honey, because I have, believe it or not, social anxiety. So I get a little squirrely. But my website is driaandersen.com. You can find me on Instagram at author Dria Andersen. And my Facebook page was hacked. So I have to work on that. But I do have a reader group that is private. And so it's Dria's Gold Gang Thing. If you find it, say hello. I'll let you in. So you can see all my little secrets.
And we'll make sure we have links for that in the show notes and the description as well for anyone who's doing
Okay.
other stuff while they're listening or watching. And then that way they can make sure to snag those. Dria, this has been so much fun. I had a blast hearing about your process, hearing about your books, and now I need to just go back through and read all of your short stories and your other series because
I love my short stories so much. Oh, and you should definitely read One Night, One Bite, because I'm coming out with the rest of that world this year. So
ooh,
yeah,
yes.
it's my vampire world. Very excited about it.
Yay.
By the time this airs, I'll probably have either have Levi out or be working on him to come out. So yeah.
Sweet. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's next on my list. TBR,
Okay.
rearranged. It's fine.